Morning. I'm going to do problem 5-9, the ogee or ogee, mostly to show you how to do the ogee, but I'll do the whole thing within reason here. So first thing you want to do, of course, is draw off the box bigger than the box that you're drawing. I'm going to do 140 by 140. This, of course, because it's in a decimal format, so you just go into decimal and don't think feet, think millimeters. So we're going to see about changing that later, but I'm going to go ahead and do a rectangle. Some of you are reading putting the dimensions in there. I would really prefer you to go at 140 comma 140. You'll see later why that tends to turn out. Of course, you have to turn on your keyboard. So this concept of making sure that you've started in the right drawing so that you've got some I'm just going to go ahead and take this out here, hit an escape once this comes through, that you've started in the right drawing, so you've got different layers and starting to be a little bit more cognizant of starting on the correct layer. So in this case, I'm going to start on the view layer. I'm going to draft a rectangle. Of course, we don't have to use the rectangle. We can use lines and offsets. I'm going to say at 140, comma 140. Zoom extents, minus V for view, W for window, plot view for later on for plotting or looking. Shift right click the endpoint. Shift right click the endpoint. And then, of course, if you get zoomed out, you can do V for view. Hit plot view, set current, and you jump back. Alright, so getting used to the concept of views. I'm going to arbitrarily just turn on my F8 ortho right here and draft a line. Sorry, I'm going to go ahead to center line. Sorry, going down to center line here. Arbitrarily draft a line from here across and draft another line. I had the F8 on from here down. My ortho is on, so those are up and down. Now I'm going to offset 82 in this direction. And I'm going to just double check that I offsetted 82, and so I did. It looks a little, I've had 140 by 140. I'm guessing that my box here is not 140 by 140 if I've offset 82. So I'm going to go ahead and explode my box, list it, and it is 140, and so I'm going to once again erase that, even though it looked, when I did it correct. Offset 82, and I guess that works for me. So I've got 82 this way. Now that offset going up and down, one thing that might be of interest here is now to offset 68. And now if you do fillet radius 0, on those, and then extend, screw that, push that out. We have not yet our piece, but we have something here that we have the baselines or some parallel lines. This actually would be the line off of the top circle. And so right now, this being 68, what the book's trying to get you to do, I'll go ahead and not do that way. I'm going to actually break this line up into 4 pieces instead of using the divide command, which is a great command. We'll use that later. I'm going to offset through this line, through the intersection of this, offset through that there, through shift right click the intersection of this. I don't want the intersection, offset through the midpoint. And I'd put the midpoint there. These do not have a midpoint yet. They won't have a midpoint until you do break, extend, screw that, and then offset through the midpoint, through the midpoint here. And now these two are the layout of your drawing. This being the center of the circle on one side, this being the center of the top and the bottom circle. The top circles are 15 for radius, so I'm going to go ahead here and draw center radius from the shift right click, the endpoint there, radius of 15. And these are all 15 radius circles. I'm going to, again, to my eye that doesn't necessarily look correct, I'm going to list it. Remember, F2 turns on your list. That is true, so I'm going to left click, spacebar, C for copy. I'm going to copy that, turning the ortho off because it bugs me. From the endpoint there, shift right click to the endpoint there. Alright, this shows you 3 different tangents. I'll show you line, shift right click from the tangent of one line, do the shift right click, tangent of the other. There were other ways to go about doing that. You could offset through the quadrant point. This one here is a tangent, tangent, radius, the one on top. So we're going to go here, tangent, tangent, radius. We're going to grab, with no snaps, grab the inside of that, and then say 56. For our eye right away, we're going to trim, screw that, and eventually we'll just erase that out there. Now this last is the ogee, so what I'm most specifically interested in. I'm going to draw a line from the quadrant of this to the quadrant of that, as it shows you. And what you see is this arc is supposed to be cotangent at this point. I'm going to go ahead and change the layer back to view just so you can see this a little better. My current layer now is view, and I'm going to go ahead and use the divide command and divide this up into 4 pieces. Divide. And what divide command does, it's going to drop little points on there which you don't always see. We're going to divide it into 4 segments, and you can't hardly see those because they're little tiny dots, but they're there and you can grab them with node. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a line from anywhere arbitrary perpendicular to, and then offset through. We're going to offset through the node, and we'll look at later how you, through the node, points are the only things with nodes. I'll go ahead and just show you the word offset through the node here at the center as well, the midpoint if you would, through the node. What this does differently than what I did on top is this is still all one line, but there are points dropped on it. That said, I'm going to extend, screw this down to the end, but I don't need to. I'm going to extend, screw that all the way up. I'm going to offset through. I'm going to offset this line straight up here through, shift right click the end of that to get our parallel line out here through the end point there. I'm going to fillet radius 0, these 2, and now we have the centers of our 2 arcs, which if you look at our 2 arcs are going to start here, they're going to be cotangent about there, so you can basically go about doing it as center radius from the shift right click the intersection here to the shift right click the intersection here. And you can once again then do, these do not have to be the same, I guess they do, but at the same distance. I'm going to go ahead and draw the circle anyway. Center radius from shift right click intersection here to the shift right click intersection there. These are all cotangent. I'm going to trim based on that and based on that, and trim this out here. I'm going to trim based on this and based on this, and I'm going to trim that there. I'm going to trim based on these 2 and trim that. I'm going to trim based on these 2 and trim that. I'm going to trim based on these 2 and trim that. You're almost done here. You don't need those construction lines. You might leave them around to look at and to process. And the last one here is, if you remember how we did this divide, right? I now have circles. One circle is, and I kind of did that not necessarily wrong because I extended this, but if you think about here, I'm going to go ahead now, and I kind of lost a little piece here because I lost this length here. And so if you think now about this 68, well, you can take out your calculator and divide 68 by 4, and I get 417. So let's just double check. Offset 17. That goes that way, sure, and then 17 again, and then 17 again, and then 17 again. You're going to see later we're going to do this a number of different ways, but for now I'll show you how to use the minus array command. I'm going to do center radius, shift right click from the endpoint here with a radius of 17. Sorry, the diameter 12. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the dynamic here, click on that, click on here, and start bringing it in, and I can just change that to a radius of 6. Now what I can do is I can left click. I'm going to hit a pause here for 1 sec. This is running out of time, so I'll do it quick. Minus array. Select my object. A rectangular array. Number of rows 5. Number of columns 1. Distance between rows 17. And there you go. Thanks for listening.